我最希望的是新加坡公民会投票，是靠他们自己的意愿，不是因为他们怕什么后果。
You and Dr. Chi are often perceived as having contrasting styles and demeanor. Do you agree?
Dr. Chi is the inspirational character. People look at him, they hear his speeches, they get fired up. But on the other hand, you've got me, who's the academic, who knows the numbers. The bottom line is that both of us have the same values at heart. And I think that is really, really critical.
Hi Prof, thank you so much for taking time to do this interview with us.
Happy to do that.
SDP just dropped its manifesto on Sunday. So there are 6 themes, over 40 proposals. If there's one thing that you would want the public to remember, what will that be?
Well, the overall theme is thrive. What we want to do is we want to give people the opportunities to actually thrive. So we don't believe in handouts. What we do believe is in a level playing field, leveling up, so that those who through no fault of their own are retrenched, or if they are elderly, that they're given enough to have a dignified life, and then they can do more if they want to. See, so I think that's the main thing, is addressing inequality. Because Singapore used to be a lot more of an equal society, and now it's become very, very unequal. And this is not just a Singapore issue. This has happened in the UK and in the US to a very large extent. And it looks like it's going to get even worse in the US with the tax cuts for billionaires and people being cut off from social services. So we really don't want that to happen in Singapore, because there's a real risk that it might.
We now have a WP and a PSP voice in the 14th Parliament. What would an SDP voice sound like?
Today in the Straits Times, they did an analysis comparing the different parliaments, and they showed that the 14th Parliament was the most active by far. And they attributed that to not just the opposition presence, but also the PAP working harder because the opposition was in Parliament. So I think having an SDP voice in Parliament is going to add another dimension to that, because we feel that POFMA is an unjust law. And if we were in Parliament, we could actually propose amendments to POFMA or reviews of POFMA, or call for actually accountability on the way in which POFMA is being used. So I think that's what people can look forward to. They can look forward to us contributing to the WP and PSP efforts to make the PAP work harder, and they can also look forward to us pushing the envelope in many of these issues.
In GE 2020, you won 46.27% of the votes in Bukit Panjang, and that is the narrowest margin in among all SMCs. So what is your objective coming into this rematch this time round?
Well, obviously my objective is to win more than 50%, and it's going to be very challenging.
What do you think is different this time round, and what is different of your strategy this time round?
Obviously, this election, we're going to get a chance to speak to people en masse, okay, which is number one, a good thing. Then number two, this election we're going to have rallies, and rallies are tremendous. I took part in rallies in the 2015 general election, and that's an opportunity to get your message across unfiltered to the people who come to your rally. People want to look for you, they come after the rally, they come on the sidelines, they talk to us. We don't have everybody up on stage. We only have the speakers up on stage. That's been the SDP tradition. So the rest of us are down on the ground, and people come to the barricades, they come and talk to us, they share issues, they ask for our opinions.
You and Dr. Chi are often perceived as having contrasting styles and demeanor. Do you agree?
Well, the bottom line is that both of us have the same values at heart. And I think that is really, really critical. We do definitely have different styles. And I think the best analogy of that is, in my work, I work with a bunch of surgeons, and there are about 3 or 4 surgeons who I'm very close to because we think along the same lines. So I'm the one who analyzes the microbiology results, the test results, and I take a very detailed history from the patient, and I prescribe the antibiotics. But the patient cannot get cured until the surgeon comes in, uses the knife and cuts out the infected part. So that's the way I see our relationship. You see, Dr. Chi is the inspirational character. You see, he's been pressing on for 30 over years. People look at him, they hear his speeches, they get fired up, they really want to fight for democracy in Singapore. But on the other hand, you've got me, who's the academic, who knows the numbers, who likes crunching data. So I think we're quite a good team from that point of view.
If any, what is the biggest argument you have had with Dr. Chi?
Well, in the last few weeks, we've been arguing about the slogan. So Dr. Chi proposed Thrive, And when I first heard that, I said, Thrive, how does a Singaporean know what's the meaning of Thrive? And I actually went back and asked my wife, who does research in well-being, and she said, maybe try Flourish. And then in the CEC, we came up with all kinds of words. We went back and forth, and finally in the end, we settled on Thrive. And we launched Thrive on Saturday. And then, the policy team that was working on the manifesto, then we realized it's very nice, it fits in as an acronym. So there's 6 letters, and each of those letters could represent one aspect of the policy that we're going to talk about. We've had other issues that we've had similar kind of disagreements. And I think eventually, as a Democratic Party, whoever, can carry the rest of the CEC is going to win the day.
Is being an opposition politician in your character?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And in fact, if you think about it, there's a famous quotation from Rudolf Virchow, who is the father of pathology. And he argued that politics is actually medicine written large. So he says that, if you really want to treat the patient, you have to treat the underlying social circumstances which led to the patient having this condition.
So you feel like being a politician, an opposition politician, is like an extension of you as a doctor.
Exactly, and in fact, this is the point. See, very early on in my career, I realized that my hands are no good. In fact, if anything goes wrong at home, my wife used to call my father-in-law. So she knows if I try and fix anything, it's going to get in the worst state. So to realize your limitations, to realize that you depend on other people. So again, this goes back to the Sunjan and myself working together. See, the very first rally speech I gave in Commonwealth, I tried to give a sort of rebel-rousing speech. And then one of my students came up to me at the end of the talk and he said, should forget it. So just go back to being the professor and deal with it, calmly and present the facts. And so that's what I've done ever since. And I think it has worked. You see, just being myself.
Prof, I know you did Mandarin and Chinese in school. So if I could, can I ask you a question in Chinese?
可以。
本届大选你最大的愿望是什么？
我最希望的是新加坡公民会投票，是靠他们自己的意愿，不是因为他们怕什么后果。他们要记得，2020年的大选有90万人是投票给反对党，他没有什么恶的后果。